Ladies and gentlemen, unless you live under a rock, you have heard the news, I'm sure, that the Sony FX5 has come out. And one of the things that I don't see people talking enough about is that even necessary for a YouTuber? So right now I'm recording on the Sony FX2. This is my primary camera. And I also have a Sony FX30. And if I'm being honest, those two cameras, I think, are all a YouTuber truly needs. It's one or the other. I don't even think you really need both. It just ultimately comes down to your preference and what you do. So for me, just for a little bit of context, my primary use for these cameras is one of them is always rigged to a teleprompter. It doesn't move, and I switch between them, to be honest. Sometimes I use the FX2 in that. Sometimes I like to take the FX2 with me. The reason I like to take the FX2 with me is because it's a great travel camera, because it has that mechanical shutter, because it basically is the A7 IV, but it also delivers outstanding video like this one. I'm very close to the camera. This is a 24mm, and the full frame look is just something you can't beat. So the reason I bring all of this up is because the Sony FX5 came out, and before that, the Sony FX3 was kind of known to be the holy grail of cameras for YouTube. But I don't know that I personally agree with that, and again, I've never used one, so I can't really speak on behalf of using it, but what I can say is the Sony FX2 has a 33 megapixel sensor, which is the same sensor that is in the Sony A7 IV. And specifically for YouTube, that over-sharpened sensor that is in these cameras is ideal. When you have a camera that is a Sony FX3 or a 16 megapixel sensor that's in the Sony FX5, those are very clearly meant for video, which you're probably like, well, that doesn't make any sense. If that's clearly meant for video, then why wouldn't I go that route? Here's the thing. YouTube compresses footage a lot. So the more sharp your image is, the better it actually looks on YouTube. And if you're using these cameras specifically for YouTube, why would you spend $5,000 on the Sony FX5? Plus, what do you need that for? If you're a wedding filmographer, if you make movies, if you use it on set or whatever, obviously get the FX5. It's a wonderful camera. But I just want to make this video to say, if you're actually considering that camera for YouTube, you better have a damn good reason to. You know what I mean? Honestly, I actually think the FX5 makes the FX3 look more compelling for YouTube, and that's not even the primary camera I would consider for YouTube. I genuinely do believe the FX2 is the best camera for YouTube, but again, that's subjective and all of that stuff. My overall point is, on my main channel, Jerry's Takes, which I do TV breakdowns, coverage, things like that on, this camera gets used and abused because I just film constantly, and this is a very reliable system for that, and you could get that out of the FX3 and FX5. But when you talk about value add, you're not really gaining anything for a talking head style video. Sure, maybe it'll look a little more cinematic because a lower megapixel camera does in general look more cinematic and it has better low light. But if you're in a studio setting with cameras and lights, that shouldn't even matter. I'd also argue even at that, this camera's not worth it. The Sony FX30 is perfect. And I used the Sony FX30 for a very, very long time. My point in saying all of this is, if you guys are over the moon excited about the FX5, it is a cool camera. I mean, there's no debate about that. The triple base ISO is really cool. The RAW, the open gate is cool, but none of those things are things when I'm sitting down to think about a camera, even though the tech enthusiast in me wants that top end because it's the top end, it's cool, it's the latest and greatest, blah, blah, blah. You have to sit back and realize, what are you actually using this for? Will I really take advantage of triple base ISO? No, I'm not going to. That's number one. Number two, am I going to ever use RAW? No, I film YouTube videos. Number three, will I ever need to use OpenGate? It's a nice to have, sure, but no, it doesn't change anything whether I use it or not. Plus, for what you have to use in terms of the camera's codec and everything to use that, I don't have any interest in that. There's just no need. The BURANO menu system, for instance. I'm used to my Sony FX30 and FX2. Why would I change it from a workflow perspective? Things like that add up. And not to mention the camera without the XLR handle is $48.98, I'm pretty sure, USD. And then you have to get a lens. Like I'm using right now the Sigma 24-70. That lens is like $1,600 or something like that. All in, you're spending like $6,000 on a YouTube setup. Plus, if you're like me, I have an ND filter on here that was $250. Then you need a tripod, then you need a cage, then you need the audio, then you need all of this. Why spend all of that money on gear that you do not need and will not use? Again, I have to reiterate, I know when it came out, the Sony FX2 was this weird middle ground thing that was like, why would I get that over the FX3 and all of that stuff? Honestly, the reason is budget. For what I got this for, I paid $2,100 for this. I think I got a renewed model on Amazon or something. Like, I can't remember. It was like 21, 22, something like that. For the price of this, I could get like 3 of these. I could get one as my A, one as my B, and then even a C just for if I want to take photos with it. Yes, it doesn't shoot 4K 60, but again, for what a YouTuber does, like talking head, you don't need it. And if you do, just switch into APS-C mode. It still looks good. It's not as good as the full frame look for sure, but if you like it, who cares? The FX30, I'd even argue, is an even better value for a little bit less of quality. The one thing I have to say about the FX30 is it actually genuinely does have very artsy specific, like it has a specific Super 35 look that is nice. The imperfections of that camera actually speak for itself, and I didn't realize that until I got a full frame sensor. The more I use this full frame sensor, I'm like, wow, this looks really clinical, which is not a bad thing. It's actually a very good thing. But the Sony FX30 has a characteristic that actually looks pretty good for YouTube. It has this authentic, nice, compressed look that I actually really enjoy. You know what I mean? My point in all of this is to say that I know it's exciting, I know it looks cool, but I hope this kind of humbled you in saying that if you're considering it for YouTube, why? If anything, again, like I said in the beginning of this makes a more compelling argument for the Sony FX3, which, again, I'm sitting here on the FX2 like, should I have gotten the FX3? But ultimately, no, it doesn't really do anything additional that I needed to do. I actually believe the FX2 has superior quality in terms of image quality to the FX3. That is subjective because of the sensors. They're very different. One is softer, the FX3. The FX2 is sharper. I like the sharper look, again, for my use case. And I think that's what you really have to think about it. There will always be this buyer impulse in me that's like, oh, the FX5 is sick. Oh, the FX3 is sick. But then when I sit down and think about what I do and what it is for my business, the less I think I need it. I don't need it. If anything, this is a good investment in getting a second one of these. I know I already said that, but that's kind of where I'm at, and that's the point I'm trying to convey in this video. Yes, the FX5 looks cool, but it really doesn't make any value for a YouTuber. It doesn't really add anything that you desperately need. For the right people, it's the best camera of all time. I'd say the same for the FX3. For the right people, it's the best camera of all time, arguably. But for YouTube specifically, the FX2 I think is perfect. And I could equally argue that for value, the FX30 is perfect. But that's subjective. That's whichever you'd prefer. I like having both, but honestly, every now and then I consider selling the FX30 for an additional FX2 so I can match it identically. I don't know if I'm going to do that. I love my FX30, so I don't see why I would sell it. But yeah, I just had to get this off of my chest. So I'd love to hear from you. How do you feel about the FX5? Where do you think it sits into the competition? And where do you think it sits in Sony's lineup as a YouTuber or just in general? Love to hear all of that down there under the like and subscribe button. And with all that out of the way, thank you again so much for watching this video. And until the next one, I'll talk to you later. Peace out.